Perfect. So we got a few people trickling in here.
I think there's 6, Emma was saying.
Yeah, we had 6 people pre-register for it. And then sometimes we get some extras along the way, which is good. And now we got 5. Perfect. All right.
I'm going to shut my phone off.
Well, while everyone's getting connected here, I'll quickly, kind of just go through our little housekeeping stuff at the start. So welcome, everybody. My name is Brianne Leclerc. I work at the Parkinson's Association of Alberta as a client service coordinator in Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, and I'll be the moderator for this webinar. So if you have any questions during the webinar, if you want to submit them in the chat below at the bottom of your screen, and that we can get to those at the end, or at the end we can unmute you to ask your questions as well. If you're having any technical issues or anything like that, you can put those into the chat box as well to me, and I can help you sort those out. A quick little disclaimer. So this webinar will be recorded. All the information provided in these videos by the Parkinson's Association and the featured speaker is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. This service is not intended to be diagnostic, prescriptive, or replace the relationship, advice, and or care of your physician. And general questions about symptoms, treatments, available medications, complementary and alternative healthcare therapies, and current research will be fielded at the end of this presentation. So I will turn it over to Cindy to quickly introduce herself and the presentation that we're going to have today.
Thank you for the introduction, Brianne, and laying all the information out. My name is Cindy Bond. I'm the Community Education Specialist for the Alzheimer's Society here in Calgary. Just a quick snippet. I've been with the Society for 6 years now. And I come from the Ontario Alzheimer's Society as well prior to that. It's my privilege and honor to connect with you today and on the topic of communication, and with the added feature of communicating with a mask. So bear with me, I'm full of gestures because one of the things I'm going to talk about today is how we need to incorporate gestures when we're communicating with somebody with dementia. So I've really taken that to heart and it's part of my repertoire now. So without further ado, let's get started. So for the next hour and a half, what I want to talk about is the philosophy of care, or the mindset. I should have called it the mindset for communicating somebody that's having communication challenges, essentially, due to some sort of cognitive impairment. So, of course, I'm from the Alzheimer's Society, but this certainly applies to anybody living with Parkinson's as well. So bear that in mind. But we're going to talk about, our mindset, if you will, or the philosophy of care and why that's so important to communication. Factors affecting communication, absolutely. We're going to talk about those as well, because there's such a parallel between somebody with a dementia, cognitive impairment, and Parkinson's challenges. Bear with me, I'm going to use those interchangeably throughout the webinar. What are the results of those factors that can impact communication, and how do we tackle them in somewhat of a framework, if you will? I like to quote Oprah, she says, we're all a work in progress. And that is so true. So some of the strategies here you might find challenging, because really I'm asking you to change or tweak the way you've been communicating with your person for years. So, and I know that can be a challenge. And so, but we need to start somewhere. So if you see the little caution sign, it says, are you ready? And that's really pays respect to, excuse me, that's my dog. Pays respect to, are you emotionally, physically, psychologically ready to communicate? because the work is on us to do, not the person living with the diagnosis. So we need to be ready. We need to be okay. We need to check in and know how we're feeling. So we're going to talk about that throughout as well. And although this webinar does not talk about behavior, I'm a firm believer that this is building the foundation, if you will, to preventing behaviors, or if not preventing, how to discern what a behavior means. Because we know poor communication can lead to frustration, and frustration can lead to behavior, right? So it's the chicken and the egg. So we're going to use or talk about that a little bit as well. So that philosophy, I want to talk about that because that mentally prepares you, hopefully, a little bit anyway, to have that mindset around being prepared for communication. So person-centered care is such an overused word, but we're still using it until it's replaced with something else. But I wanted to drill down to what does that mean, person-centered care? So it actually maintains and upholds the value of the person despite their level of impairment. It also looks at the person as more than their diagnosis. So no matter what we see, we cannot assume it's due to Parkinson's. We have to look at the whole person. Are they getting their eyes checked regularly? Is their pain being managed successfully? All those things, dental work, all those things. So sees challenging behavioral changes as a need and opportunity for communication. So this is typically the person that has a lot of aphasia or speech difficulties that are really struggling to be understood by someone else. A lot of times their behavior gives us insight as to what's going on internally. So it sees all behavior as a need and opportunity for communication, and therefore sees all actions as meaningful. So even if a person is no longer speaking at all, we have to pick up on cues and clues, if you will, as to what's happening internally. Considers and attempts to provide for the needs of the person, including what their challenges are, right? So an example of that is if your person has difficulty hearing, we're going to speak a little bit louder. If your person wears glasses, not only are they going to have glasses, but they're going to be clean. So that's going to help them communicate. Employ staff and caregivers that are emotionally available. And by emotionally available, I mean that you're with the person. You're not making a grocery list. You're not thinking ahead to what you have to do next. You're actually in the moment and you're paying attention and you're emotionally, physically, psychologically available to really pick up on the clues and cues, like I said earlier, of what the person might be expressing. So paying attention to body language. If you're doing a mental, I got to do this after, and I got to do that, then you're going to miss sudden subtleties and nonverbals that could really impact that communication with your person. So personhood promoting interaction. So that's the philosophy. And now how do we push it forward? Validation is, if you don't remember anything else from this webinar, validating and supporting the emotions and feelings that the person is experiencing is the biggest takeaway. There's so much more, but if you only remember one thing, that's the important one. Supporting the emotions. So how is the person feeling? What are they expressing through their emotions? Remember, all behavior has meaning. So sometimes that becomes their form of communication. So always validating those emotions is really important. Collaborating, working with the person, not for. So I know as a caregiver, because I was a caregiver, and I know how how frustrating it can be and time consuming it can be at times. However, we need to work with the person and not do things for them, because that takes away their abilities. We want everyone to be independent as long as possible while compensating for those challenges, but we need to really slow down and pay attention as to what they can still do and what they need assistance with. If we rush in to do everything for them, we're going to lose out on a lot, and they are as well. Play and celebrate. We need to use humor and have fun as much as possible. Yes, especially now. Use your sense of humor. Encouraging spontaneity and self-expression. You know what? Depending on the person and the situation, you can laugh at some of those challenges if it's appropriate. Or let them be spontaneous and in the moment. It's part of their self-expression. Facilitate, accommodating the person's challenges to enable him or her to do a task. The example I always think of is asking your person to brush their teeth. You go in to see how they're doing. They haven't started the task yet. So does that mean they can't brush their teeth? Not necessarily. Maybe they just need you to hand them that toothbrush and then they're good to go. Or you need to hand them the toothbrush, wait. If they're not good to go, put the toothpaste on, wait again. So it's working with and seeing what can be done. Relax, helping the person to relax and feel comfortable without making intellectual demands. So communicating, a lot of times we were perhaps raised to believe that talking about ourselves was not a good idea or wasn't manners, if you will. But when you're working or collaborating with somebody with any kind of challenge, again, you want to make sure that you're not inundating them with a lot of questions. How are you today? Do you want to wear this? Do you want to go here with me? What do you want for dinner? Like, that's inundating. It can be very challenging and overwhelming for the best of us, but especially somebody with Parkinson's, that can really cause them to shut down. So we'll talk about communication strategies, but we need to relax and be available. I love this quote. I hope that you can understand what my words cannot express. So again, assuming that aphasia has occurred, or that expressive aphasia, which I'm going to talk more about. Maybe your person is non-communicative at all, or perhaps your person is talking and it's jumbled and it's mixed up and you can't make sense out of it. So again, how do we figure out what's going on inside? And I love this as well. Only those who care about you can hear you when you're quiet. So it's not only behavior or we would say outward expressions or behaviors that really catch our attention. It's when your person is quiet as well. Like, what are they saying? Are they okay? Are they in pain? So all those things come into play. And no, it's the domino effect. If one aspect of someone's cognition is challenged, and we're going to talk about those different aspects, if you will, then it can impact the whole process of communication. So what are some of now talking about the A's of dementia, or the A's of a cognitive impairment. So this applies as well. So amnesia, short-term memory is often affected more so than long-term. Not for all, but for some. So that can happen. Aphasia, loss of language, again, expressive aphasia. So talking about what they need. Can I have a glass of water? Let's go to the store. But also interpretive aphasia. So you say to me, let's go to Costco. and I look at you and I'm not sure, I don't respond. I'm looking at you like I don't know what you said exactly. And I'm finding challenges in that. There might be something in that sentence that I don't understand, or perhaps I didn't even hear. So that can impact language. Agnosia, loss of recognition, not recognizing or understanding the purpose and meaning of people, objects, or sounds. So if you say to me, for example, Cindy, would you like a glass of water? And or actually, if I say to you, I want a glass of water, and this is sitting in front of me, it's a water bottle, but I don't recognize that for what it is. So sometimes we have to pair our language. Here's your water. And then I might have difficulty figuring out how to use it, but that's another part of it as well. Apraxia, definitely, and Parkinson's, loss of purposeful movement as well, can occur. So that definitely movement overall, right, can be impacted. But also the inability to plan and execute or sequence. So even physically, if I'm able to get dressed, I might not be able to sequence the order of how to put my clothing on. So underwear can go over pants, or bras can go over shirts. That can happen as well, because that's sequencing. Altered perceptions for somebody with Parkinson's experiencing dementia, it can affect what they see and what they interpret in the environment. So for example, a shiny floor could look like water. And again, no two people are the same, but that's just an example. So someone who's hesitant to walk on a shiny floor might be seen as being resistive rather, when in fact they're communicating, their body language is saying something else, that maybe they're fearful because it looks like water. White as well for some is difficult to see. So I know that's hard to imagine, but if you have a white wall where you are right now and there's a picture hanging on it, you know it's hanging on a white wall because you see the wall behind it. For somebody, and for some, it could look like that picture is floating because they don't recognize the white behind the wall. So that can happen. And if you think of everything that's in a bathroom, it's all white. White toilet, white sink, white shower, white bathtub, all those things. So that can, definitely impact a person's ability to communicate. If I'm fearful of getting into a bathtub because I don't see it, I think it's a hole, then again, my behavior is communicating something. Dark things can look like holes as well. So navy, brown, maroon, all the dark colors, black, of course, can look like a hole. So being aware of that as well. Apathy, that lack of initiative, is very, very common as well. It's hard to get started. Typically, once a person is started, they can continue, but it's getting them going. So it's saying to somebody who loves ice cream, let's go to Dairy Queen, and they go, no. But once you get them there, they really enjoy it. So that's the lack of initiative, a lack of getting up and doing things. Anosognosia is a loss of self-awareness. So I no longer remember that I have these challenges. So we see when this part happens for some, anxiety decreases because it is what it is. But the anxiety increases a lot of times for the caregiver because they're now alone in what's happening. They can't share that experience. Attention deficit, inability to maintain or shift focus. So you're talking to your person and then all of a sudden they hear something and they shift their attention away from what you're trying to tell them. So that can be impacted as well. Other factors that affect cognition. So these are really, really important to note that regardless of your person's current medical condition, if you will, these will impact their cognition and therefore impact communication. So malnutrition or dehydration. Malnutrition we see a lot for people who are living on their own in community. Remember the sequencing I talked about? It takes a lot to prepare a meal. So it's just easier to eat a bag of chips or a bag of cookies. So we see that happening in community as well. Dehydration. Yeah, you know yourself if you've ever been dehydrated. For some, they get a headache. It's hard to pay attention. You get tired. So all that can impact cognition and make it worse as well. Pain and discomfort, absolutely. If you've ever had a toothache or a chronic pain, you know it's hard to concentrate. It's hard to pay attention, so you can't communicate effectively. Depression, absolutely. Stress. Vitamin B12 deficiency has an impact on cognition as well as fatigue or lack of sleep. And being mindful too. I always ask when I used to do, back in Ontario, I did home assessments. One of the first things I would ask is how many times are you up every night to go to the washroom? And letting your doctor know. So are you getting into REM sleep, which is what really, makes you feel refreshed when you wake up. So something to have a conversation with your doctor. Medication interactions, absolutely. I know when I was a caregiver, the local pharmacist was on speed dial. I had him by first name. Hi, Paul, it's Cindy. New medication, or this is what I'm seeing. Could it be a result? Yes or no? And then I would always, follow up with doctor. But disorders like thyroid malfunction. So if your person has a diagnosis of Parkinson's as well as thyroid, managing that as well. And of course, delirium, which can impact cognition. So difficulty with language, what can we see? Difficulty finding the right word. So things like, pass me that thing, that thing. Creating new words for forgotten ones. Pass me a jug of water when it's a glass of water, they mean. Repeating a word or phrase, which is known as perseveration. So just repeating something over and over and over again can impact language. Difficulty organizing words in logical sentences. So that can happen as well. So Sarah tomorrow tomato basket could mean Sarah came with a basket of tomatoes. So it's trying to figure out what they're communicating. Cursing or using offensive language can happen. Reverting to the language that was first learned as well. Talking less than usual. So again, a lot of times when a person is aware of what's happening and there are challenges around communication, they can become very quiet because they're embarrassed. It's a loss, it's a struggle, and it's just easier to be quiet, and we don't want that to happen. Becoming stuck on certain sounds can happen, as well as slower processing speeds. So that's the interpretive language. It takes me a while to figure out, I want to go to Costco? So I need to figure that out. Do I want to go? I have to weigh that. Even if I understood what you said, it's going to take me a while. And again, no two people are the same, but it can impact that processing speed. So tackling the challenges. There's a really nice acronym, nice and easy while wearing a mask. And I know a lot of these is, wearing a mask, it definitely impacts everything that we're trying to do as well. And I have a slide for that because you're going to get a copy of the recording. So I want you to have all of this information. In terms of name, you're going to use the person's preferred name always. So my name is Cynthia. I don't go by Cynthia. My grandmother only called me Cynthia when she was angry. So I don't go by Cynthia. So preferred name is really, really important. Identifying yourself, especially wearing a mask. Your person might not be able to pinpoint who you are right away. So always being mindful of that and saying, "Hi, Dad, it's your daughter, Cindy. How are you today?" So we're doing a lot of different things. We're helping Dad identify who we are by saying who we are and what is our relationship. It's your daughter, Cindy. How do you like my mask? Talk about the mask. It's me in here. Do you want to feel it? This is a new one, those kind of things. It's hot, and just talking about that because it is different communicating with a mask. So contact, again, a little tap on the hand, sometimes attention can be affected, and now we're wearing a mask. There's less for them to see. So we keep in mind, we interpret the world around us through all our senses. So we've just lost one of the senses, or one of them is impaired at the very least, where they can't see our lips moving. So we want to make that contact, perhaps eye contact, get in a little closer if you're able to. We're going to talk about how to express yourself in a minute, but definitely you might want to touch their arm just to get their attention. Position yourself in the person's peripheral, or not in their peripheral, in their view. So as we get older, our peripheral vision changes. It comes in a little bit. So if you're talking to the person on their side, they might not be able to see you right away. So what we want to do is angle when we approach. It's just a little way that can make it easier for them to see us. In terms of expressing yourself, we're going to, an easy acronym is called KISSES, KISSS. It stands for keep it short, simple, and slow. So when you're communicating, you're not going to sound condescending, but you are going to slow down a little bit. So if you're a really fast talker, you need to be mindful of that and slow down your rate of speech for several reasons. If you're wearing a mask and you talk really fast, you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to be exhausted 5 minutes into the conversation. Or if you're like me and you wear glasses, you're going to fog up, get frustrated, you're going to get hot, and that's going to impact how you communicate. So keep that in mind as well. Allow 15 to 30 seconds for the person to respond as well. So if you're saying, "How are you today?" you're going to allow that 15 to 30 seconds. And then if they don't respond, you may want to rephrase it. So you could say, "Are you feeling okay today?" instead. Or you may want to lean in and just say, "Are you okay?" and check in. So keep it short, simple, and slow. Limit distractions as well. So, shut off radios, turn down the television when you're expressing yourself, because your mouth, they can't read lips. So make sure your body language is relaxed, because this is what they're going to see while you're wearing a mask. So kind of relax your shoulders, Slow down your rate of speech. Be mindful of your breath when you're trying to express yourself. That's really important. Keep a friendly, relaxed tone as well. So again, that helps if you slow down. It's okay to talk about yourself. We already talked about that. Another tip, if you will, while wearing a mask is saying how you're feeling. And as an experiment, I've been trying this in the grocery store. When something happens, somebody cuts me off and says, I'm sorry, I will say, that's okay, instead of just smiling. So again, we're all a work in progress, but say how you're feeling. It's so nice to see you, because they can't see your smile when you're wearing a mask. So we need to share how we're feeling. Be aware of the lighting behind you when you're communicating as well, because if you're in front of a window or a light is behind you, sometimes you just look like a silhouette. So again, we want to use all the senses to give that brain information. So just something to be aware of. Are you a silhouette, or can they actually see you? Being mindful of that. I already said to be mindful of how you're feeling and your breath. It's very normal to get tired while wearing a mask. So take a break, have a plan. Know that you don't have to talk all the time. Sometimes just being with the person is what needs to happen. Have a plan for topics or activities that can help as well. You don't want to yell when wearing a mask, even if somebody is hearing impaired, but you do want to slow down and articulate what you're saying very, very clearly. So you want to project your voice, like I just did. Project your voice instead of looking down. You're going to look at the person. So that's really important. So no talking with your back to them. They need to be front and center, because they need to hear what you're saying. It's a little thing, but it can make a big difference. You're also going to emphasize consonants like P for pumpkin, T for Tom, and K for kite, because sometimes those consonants are hard. They sound like something else. So just being aware of PTK, any of those words, we want to, again, project your voice and really emphasize that consonant. So for Halloween, I'm just saying pumpkin. Instead of saying pumpkin, you're going to want to say pumpkin. It's a subtle difference, but it can make a big difference to the person hearing it. Do not run on words. Don't mumble. Keep your head up. We talked about lower tones are sometimes harder to hear. So for gentlemen, this means you might be harder to hear. So you're going to really have to work at projecting your voice while communicating with a mask. And for older women, such as myself, our tone changes as we get older. So there's a little bit more work to do. And I always say smile too, because it affects your tone. It can be so, so helpful. And remember I said to relax your posture, avoid any posture that signals frustration. And that includes hand gestures, like doing this can communicate a lot, in the moment. And depending on the person, this might not mean frustration. It could mean something else. So, but just being aware of that, you might want to say how you're feeling with your gestures. So I notice we have a question. Brienne, can we answer that? Are we supposed to be seeing a list of tips? You're going to, sorry, you're ahead. Yes, I mentioned it, and now you're going to, I think it's my next slide. Yes. So You're certainly welcome to take a picture of this, but this is everything I've talked about in a nutshell. I'm not going to go through it again, but I wanted to put it on one slide so you have it in one place. So that's the list of how to express yourself. Thank you for reminding me. I can bring that up later. Now, another tip, if you will, or strategy for connecting, helping you connect with your person while wearing a mask. And this is somebody you can, communicating with somebody in the very late stages of their condition, or even if they have dementia. So this another strategy for helping you connect is called mirroring. And what you want to do is mirror what the other person is doing. So tone of voice. If you walk in and your person is, "Hi, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you." And you walk in and go, yeah, it's great to see you too. It's a subtle thing, but it's more impactful if we mirror what we see. Human nature dictates that we like people that are similar to us. It's genetic. It's us as a species. So if we match those tones, and of course this works on anybody, you can try this on anybody and it will work. The opposite is true too. If you walk in and somebody says, "Hi, it's good to see you," and you're, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you," it might be very off-putting for them. And remember, communication is a way of connecting, right? Staying connected with the person. So, and we want to do that. Tempo and speed, of course. Just being mindful of your volume, even your terminology. So for example, your person says, "I want to watch the orchestra on television after dinner." Instead of saying, "Oh, you mean watching The Voice," which, we don't want to correct the person. We would use it, "Oh, the orchestra. Yes, I know you love that show." And you just go with it. It's about connecting. You want them to keep communicating is so important. Posture, imitating posture as well. So for some, if, crossing their arms is who they are and that's how they communicate, you can do that as well. So just imitating their posture and gestures. Eye contact as well. Eye contact is a big one because a lot of us have a social work background. We were, it was beaten into us figuratively that we had to maintain eye contact. Now we know better. So if the person is maintaining eye contact with you, then you certainly want to mirror that to let them know that you're engaged and you're listening. If they're looking away all the time, you're not going to want to stare them down. That can really make them uncomfortable. Proximity is the same. Everyone is different in terms of their comfort level. So who we allow close to us too, depends. We let people that are really close to us, like a spouse or a child, very close. What I call our whisper zone. They're very, very close. While others need to, be a little bit farther away. Now, again, if your person is not communicating verbally, but through body language, just recognizing the person stepping back or actually withdrawing physically because they potentially feel you're too close. So you want to mirror that as well. Okay. What works in late stages is keeping eye contact or mirroring that, communicating with the eyes, everything we've talked about so far, including music. Music is really important. So in addition, always, regardless of the person's challenges, we always treat them as an adult. We all use all the senses to communicate. We use who the person is, and that's life story often. And sharing that with others. You know, if you're able to communicate successfully with your person, sharing with others how you do that is really, really important. Respond to the emotions expressed. And sometimes we don't know what the emotions are, and it's okay to say, you look really sad today. And if we're wrong, we'll be told. So don't be afraid to be wrong about that. Behaviors communicate a message always. Understand the reality and go there. So part of communication is living their reality as well. So for example, you know, I say to you, I want to see my mom. I want to see my mom. And you know, my mom has passed, for example. So, you know, you would want to connect with those feelings. Obviously, I miss my mom. So let's talk about her. Do you miss your mom? What do you miss about your mom? Tell me about your mom. Was your mom like this? I think you have your mom's nose, you know, all those kind of things. So what's their reality, and go there. And again, you're responding to the emotions expressed. Consider writing things down as well when you're communicating. So if your person is having a lot of challenges with the mask, you might even want to put your name on your shirt, or write things down. So that can help. Also consider, especially if you're visiting your person in a different home, they don't see you every single day, whether that's a care home or they're still living in their own home. Wearing familiar clothing can help make that connection, as well as your hairstyle and even hair color. So because they can't see this much of you, right? So that can help them put those pieces together. So that's the end of my presentation. I just want to let you know what our current services are at the Alzheimer's Society: one-to-one support through email, phone calls, or video chat. We have extended hours by appointment, online training, community resource and referral, and you're already well connected. But we do have a lot of webinars if you're interested. And just a quick shout out to our educational sponsors: Gordie Howe Cares, All Seniors Care, and Alberta Retired Teachers Charitable Foundation. And that's it for me. Is there any questions?
That was an excellent presentation. I do have a question here from Vaughn. He was asking, when you're going through the tips, if there was a list of them on the screen on the presentation.
Yes, those, let me see, where are they? These here. Oh, it brought me, sorry, back to the beginning. Bear with me. Is it the one screen that the person is referring to? This one? This is the cheat sheet, if you will.
I'll unmute Vaughn so he can clarify which.
Okay.
One.
Yes, that's the correct one.
Okay, yes, you will get that for sure. It's in the presentation, so.
Perfect. Do we have any other questions from the group on communicating wearing masks?
Now, normally I have a survey that I send out. However, I didn't this time. So any feedback that you have, and that even, you know, you can use the chat box. Was this relevant to you? I know not everybody with Parkinson's has dementia, but I included those slides because if you're person does or doesn't, these tips are going to help you. It just, builds your repertoire around the skills. That's the way I intended it, but I don't know if that was effective for you. So that feedback, any and all feedback, I would greatly appreciate if you just wanted to type it into the chat box. That's how I learn. Otherwise, I keep doing the wrong thing.
I personally think, it's really helpful having even, parts of the kind of communicating with people with dementia, because it is something that we do see sometimes in later stage Parkinson's. So it is good to have that information even before we're kind of experiencing that, so you can kind of learn these skills ahead of time. And then, I think just sort of, some of the communication stuff that we often forget about, especially while we're wearing masks, that, those visual cues aren't there, is super helpful things to hear and know. Overall, I think it was a really informative presentation for the group. Does anybody else want to be unmuted to kind of share their thoughts or any questions that they had? I did have a question, and that's, so with Parkinson's, often, same with kind of some forms of dementia, we see facial masking.
Yes.
So those expressions aren't there. Often when people are speaking to a group of people with Parkinson's or spouses, find it really frustrating. Do you have anything that might help in sort of getting people to recognize that they aren't emoting that, to kind of help communication back and forth?
Absolutely. The internet has got two great tools that I recommend. If you just go into images, Google Images, and look up emotions, there's pictures of emotions that help the person identify what's happening internally, which can be so helpful for caregivers because of that masking. Can really, for some, I understand, make caregivers feel so isolated and alone, right? But knowing what's going on internally, even though there's that mask, if you will, can be very helpful. There's one in particular, there's one with facial expressions I really like, and another one is a colorful wheel, and it really drills down to emotions. So, are you angry? Are you sad? Are you resentful? So it really breaks it down. And it's a tool that I recommend, like I said, for caregivers, just to check in and say, how are you doing today? And pulling that out and helping the person identify. Yeah.
That's an excellent, and that'll have to take a look. I'll see if I can track down some of those pictures to kind of give some examples to people. Because it can be very difficult for caregivers when they're not sure kind of where they're at, or the individual is having trouble communicating kind of what's going on or how they are feeling. So to have that kind of ways to cue that would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And a lot less isolating. I know I've had caregivers say, I'm sitting there crying and my person seems so emotionless and I feel so alone in my feelings, but there's a whole bunch of stuff happening under that mask, right? And helping, is any of this resonating with you? And often they're able to say, I'm sad too. Or those kind of things. Yeah, it's less isolating for sure.
That'll be a good resource. Don't see any other questions coming up. It was a super thorough presentation. So there, and then do you mind emailing one of us here a copy of the presentation so people could,
Sure.
or the tips that is expressing yourself slide, so people could kind of just have that as a quick reminder of some of the kind of helpful things they can do to help improve that communication.
For sure. I can send you a copy of the slides. Not a problem.
That would be wonderful. Well, we'll let everybody get back to their day here. Thank you for coming out and attending. And thank you, Cindy, so much for presenting. That was such an excellent presentation. I hope we get to see you back another time here. I think there's some definitely excellent information that we can learn. And then it was wonderful to get to meet you and see you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Take care. Take care, everybody. Stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.
Bye.